Hey guys, thanks for joining us at Guardian. Just wanted to have a little conversation today about holsters. It's one of the biggest questions that everybody asks when they just buy a gun. And when you're just getting started, how do you train? What do you carry in? It's a really, really important question. There's a bunch out there. What's the answer? Let's talk about it.
I would say what's the key purpose of a holster? To be able to carry a gun safely, fully loaded, ready to go all the time. So that means retained and safe while it's in the holster, and to be able to consistently and repeatedly draw from that said holster, and to be able to one-handed reholster without pointing the handgun at yourself. If you can't cover those with your holster, throw it in the garbage and move on down the road.
So the holster types of materials would be leather, Kydex, other kinds of material, nylon, various fabrics, and wearable holsters.
Yeah,
like
I would
integrated in clothing,
sure,
bags, anything like that. So leather holsters. What do you think?
Good and bad. Extremely comfortable, wear in nicely, easier on the finish on the guns, but the biggest issue is that they get more pliable over time. So as they become more pliable, that's where people, heck, there's that picture going around right now of collapsed in right on top of the trigger guard as somebody's trying to depress the gun into the holster, which is the biggest issue. We always see people digging, and we see that usually they're not quality leather, they're mediocre leather at best. And I don't have a problem with a good leather holster. Heck, you've been making ones like that for years that they're good quality holsters if you use good quality leather. But there's still inherent problems on pointing it at yourself when you're going to reholster, and primarily the collapsing issues.
Well, the problem that I've seen with every leather holster that's available on the market, every retail holster, is that they're all soft.
Oh yeah.
None of them are stiff.
Oh no.
The holsters that I made were almost like a light Kydex. They're stiff, but you've still got finish wear. Of course, the finish wear tends to go to a certain point and then no more.
Correct.
You still have finish wear. As far as comfort, I've carried a leather holster just as much as I've carried a Kydex holster. They are literally no different.
Unless you're talking about physical contact against your body, that's the only place that you can discuss leather against Kydex and say that leather's more comfortable. And if ones you're talking about, a dual attachment that's on the belt, you're not feeling the leather anyway, so what does it matter? An OWB type setup. So yeah, completely agree with
The only way it's different is if it's inside the waistband and you're not wearing a t-shirt to protect your skin from it. Then the leather is a little bit more comfortable. Even then, it's not that big of a difference.
No, it's really
but
not.
It's a little more comfortable. So on the whole, I don't tend to recommend people. I don't point people toward leather holsters.
Almost never.
Because they're very few and far between.
It's
the ones that are realistic.
Antiquated, old technology, if you want to use that term. It's older technology. It's an older style of building holsters and equipment. Kydex has come along and completely changed the game. So why would we can argue hybrids and other things, but why would we build something out of a subpar material when we should be building it out of something that has almost none of the drawbacks with way more advantages? So
Kydex, I see the advantages. Kydex is molded to fit the gun. So it actually fits the gun. It protects the trigger guard extremely well. So you can pretty much guarantee that nothing can contact the trigger when the gun's properly seated in the holster. It's going to last as long as you don't leave it in your hot car in the windshield and that Kydex comes unfolded. But it's going to last. It's going to protect the gun well. Kydex can be inside the waistband or outside the waistband, both successfully. But there's a key difference between, because there's a lot of Kydex manufacturers. And most of them, I would say that the shell of the holster, there's not that big of a difference between the Kydex holsters.
No.
So what's the key difference that we're looking for in the holster? What's
the
important?
Design. 100% on whether or not you can grab it, and they have the cut proper for your actual high grip on the gun in the holster, and retention. Like those two are the issues when you're dealing with Kydex. If you can deal with both of those, if they're cut properly for the gun to where you can get a full firing grip on the gun in the holster, and if it has good quality retention, those are the two, if we're talking Kydex body.
Right.
Obviously, if we move to attachment positions good clips versus bad clips, soft loops versus hard loops, you know, weaving a belt versus being able to clip it on and off. That's a different part of the conversation. But Kydex itself, those two are the two main issues that I'm looking for when I deal with the Kydex holster.
Now, when we talk about retention, there are a couple different kinds of retention depending on what you're carrying, what your purpose is.
Sure.
Is it different whether we're inside the waistband or outside the waistband?
I would say absolutely it's different. You're outside the waistband on Kydex. Now we're dealing with, it has got to be a positive retention in the actual physical Kydex holster, so that when you're actually putting it in, whether you want to talk wrestling, rolling around, you know, whatever, you do not have the tension of the belt and your body retaining the gun as you do when you're talking about an IWB or especially an appendix position. So I think it absolutely matters.
Yeah. So with appendix, you still have to have retention,
of course,
but it's a little different because the belt is actually retaining the gun as well as the holster itself.
Well, and then all these that are made with good wedges or, you know, countering points to where the belt actually pulls in even more. It creates additional retention on a quality holster that on a OWB especially you don't have. So you've got to have more retention on those and just a positive click.
Right.
You know, when you're talking about an OWB versus an IWB.
I think for most people, the majority of people are going to be concealed carrying. So generally, if you're carrying concealed, it's a little harder for most people to get away with an outside the waistband OWB holster.
Sure.
I mean, we can pull it off, and we do it fairly often, and most people can if they figure it out.
If we wear the Hawaiian shirts, I guess it works all the time.
That's it.
But
most people are going to be carrying inside the waistband.
Right.
So the key difference on inside the waistband, because you look at, you know, you go pick 10 random holsters off the internet, and the body of the holster is going to look very, very similar.
Right.
The difference is going to be how it's attached.
For sure.
And that makes a huge difference.
So when we start looking at attachments, what's the first thing that you look for? When you're looking at just general attachments, what are you looking for on a holster that says that's even worth consideration or that's not?
How secure is it going to be on the belt? When you draw the gun, are you going to draw the holster too?
Yeah, but I want it all about how easy it is to take it off my belt and put it in my center console.
Well, that's great.
Time I get
if it's easy to take off your belt, it's also easy
to come off.
And we've seen it hundreds of times in classes. I mean, I would say every single class we have at least one person that draws a gun and the holster comes with the gun.
Without question.
And I mean, I've got that right there. Good Kydex holster. I mean, it's solid, but that clip right there, and you can even see there's a difference. And I mean, unless it's solid, tightened down, and even then it's kind of iffy. It's super easy to get on and off your belt, but
and the way that's actually designed, it's designed to be able to stick your finger down there and be able to just lift that clip to where you can pull it.
Yep.
I mean, that's the
as
difference.
soon as you draw aggressively, that holster comes off.
These, which are ones that we started running. Where's the first place we started running those clips?
Not on a gun holster.
Not on a gun holster. So, you know, we've been using these style of clips forever, and they're extremely tight. This is extremely tight, but it's got a hook that the only way to get this thing off, it's ridiculously difficult to unclip, but just that little minor difference makes those two holsters that are in every possible way almost identical, makes those two holsters go from one is very mediocre and one is extremely well built in its ability to retain the holster on your body, you know, in spite of anything else. So and
you and I are both also a big fan of the soft loops.
Oh yeah,
it's designed very similar to that, but it's actually a loop that is it's made out of a stiff fabric, you could call it. It's more of a plastic type material,
like a rubber,
but it's a solid enclosed
think of it like
loop.
like a belt.
Yeah, it's a little tiny belt, but it's a solid closed loop. And the advantage to that is that it's not going to come off.
It's impossible.
I mean, you have to undo your belt, but you know, I wear my gun all day, every day.
Once I put it on, it doesn't come off.
It's not coming off. So why am I worried about that?
Completely agree. I mean, the only thing that I would say about those soft loops is how many of them do you see where guys will get the clip soft loops, and if you're able to clip a soft loop, they get unclipped just as easily. and most of them are pretty hard to actually clip all the way. What I've seen more than a few times is people think that they're clipped and they're not.
Right.
So if you're going to go to the amount of trouble that it takes to clip it on, why not just deal with a soft loop and thread it? So completely agree. Biggest deal is those are just issues that you've got to start looking at, you know. So leather and Kydex. Now you've kind of got hybrids.
Yep.
You know,
the hybrid is the leather back with the Kydex mold that goes over the top of it, the shell that goes over the top of it. Most of them are, as I played with them, most of them, the leather is the weak,
soft,
supple leather that we talked about that feels nice against your bare skin, but it ends up being a danger. It ends up getting in the way of your firing grip. You can't get a proper grip on the gun.
Correct.
That leather starts to fold up, and it makes it very difficult to holster the gun.
The ones that have the nylon back are even worse.
Right.
I mean, they're ridiculous. Almost never are they cut properly. They want to use a universal backing that is cut way wide. You cannot get a master firing grip on that handgun in the holster. Usually the sweat guard goes way too high. So as you're wearing it and you're leaning, it's constantly rolling over that top edge. So the only way that you ever see people holster those is they come back and they point the gun directly at their hip and they try to holster.
Right.
You know, the deal is everybody wants to talk about comfort first, and I don't understand why comfort is the conversation before safety. I don't understand that. You know, if I'm putting a gun on my wife or on me or on a friend or people who are just trying to get into carrying a handgun, why on earth would we ever, you know, recommend something that creates nothing but safety issues and endangers them, and the less experience that they have, the worse it even gets. So, and the hate comes every single time that you talk about it, because some of the best marketers out there are hybrid holsters.
It does.
And it doesn't make them
good. The truth is, they're not that much more comfortable. Not in reality. And most of the people that really push the hybrid holsters are, hate to say it, but they don't train.
No. Mediocre at best. And there's a few out there that are a minority to that. And usually they get paid a pretty penny to be able to talk about those holsters. So biggest deal is, what do we use every single day? And this isn't a marketing
Kydex
campaign.
Inside the waistband with a solid clip.
That's correct.
Or a loop.
Every single time.
That's it.
Yep.
You know, you think about all the other materials. You know, there are a few of them. They're big names that are all out there that are made of some kind of hybrid material, some hybrid fabric, however stiff it is. There are some really ingenious designs for how to make it very hidden and easily get it out, and all these kind of ideas. I've never seen one that I've said that actually works the way a firearm holster is supposed to work to allow you to safely holster the firearm, actually train with it, and efficiently access the firearm when you need it.
Correct. Safe while it's in the holster, and to be able to consistently and repeatedly draw from that said holster, and to be able to one-handed reholster without pointing the handgun at yourself. I mean, if you can't cover those with your holster, throw it in the garbage and move on down the road.
Everybody I talk to that looks at these various designs, I just had somebody just 2 nights ago texting me, what do you think about this one? And I told him, and it's because he hasn't done the kind of training that we do.
Correct.
No knock against him. He was trying to think, what's going to be comfortable? What's going to be reasonable cost? But the one of the big things that nobody seems to think about is, can you reholster this gun 100 times over the course of a couple hours of doing actual training? And if you can't do that safely, that's not a holster that would be appropriate for your firearm.
Yeah, if the answer is you have to take it out and slide your gun in it, and then you can put it in a pocket or so on and so forth, you know, that's not how you're going to run that gun. So it really comes down to, the training has got to coincide with the actual piece of equipment. The piece of equipment doesn't stand alone just because it's comfortable or it feels good or it looks good or so and so said. You've got to have some kind of a litmus test to be able to, you know, work against that holster and say, why is it good or why is it not? So if you can't answer the questions that we just covered, it's a garbage holster, get rid of it. So,
and then final question real quickly, just don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but the wearables, you know, whether it's a bag that's got a concealed carry or a purse or a jacket with a pocket or a belly band or, you know,
Yeah.
any name
Any
of
number of
wearables.
them. So first things first, bags. You know, whether we're talking camping or we're talking get home bags or we're talking out in public and we are going to have a backpack or a messenger bag of some style.
My purse.
Well, I was at least going to say a merce, but you know, whatever. But yeah, I mean, as long as you have that, here's the deal. A pocket for the gun is not sufficient.
Correct.
So it can be a pocket specifically designed for that gun, and then you need some kind of MOLLE attachment, some kind of Velcro, some way to attach or secure that holster. Inside of a bag is no excuse to not have the gun in the holster.
Right.
And, you know, then we have to get into the, well, I'm going to carry it in half load and this, that, and the other. The reality is you're just making excuses for why it's not in a good quality holster. So if you're going to carry it into a bag, it's still got to be in a bag or in something that has a way to secure it, which goes back to our same qualification. Can you draw it one-handed? Can you securely draw it without the holster coming out? And can you reholster one-handed?
Right.
You know, and if you can, again, if you can pass those questions and say yes to all of them, then I have no problem with that holster in that bag.
Right.
If you can't, why are you doing it?
So it has to be secure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not flopping around everywhere, and it's got to be safe.
Yep.
It's got to have some way to protect and cover that trigger guard so that it doesn't accidentally
Exactly.
go bang.
Exactly.
We don't want anything like that either.
So what about the belly bands? What about without getting into specifics today,
Right.
you know, what about the ones that are, you know, pressure type material, whether it be a pressure shirt, pressure pants, pressure shorts, no matter what you really get into, you know, is there a place for it is the biggest question.
You know, based on everything we've talked about, as far as safety is an issue, especially
Mm-hmm.
training, any kind of training, because most of those don't have any way to protect the trigger guard. There are a
Yep.
couple on the market that are starting. The popularity seems to be people are recognizing the necessity of it. So
Correct.
if you could find one that actually has something to protect the trigger guard,
If it's got a actual trigger guard and a sleeve, but then
because the advantage
gun
to those
actually
is that
indexes.
they hide the gun
Extremely
well, and they're good for concealment. You're not going to be able to train with them.
Right.
You're not going to be able to come to one of our classes and train out of that belly band. That's
Sure.
not going to happen.
You know,
But the skills for
That's what I was
drawing
gonna
from
say.
appendix from a good holster are almost identical to the
Correct.
skill to drawing from a belly band.
and what's the first thing that we do in all of our classes? We want to give people the skills and the ability to take all the practice that we give and instruct during a class, but then be able to turn around and go home and continue that practice.
Right.
So can you train out of it? Yes. Can you live fire train safely? That gets pretty hard. So, you know, but if I'm going to wear it, no matter what the holster is, I'm going to be doing hundreds of draws out of it at home. And unfortunately, most people don't do it anyway, let alone do it with some weird holster.
Yeah. In other words, yes, there's a place for it,
Right.
but we need to be able to articulate why.
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose for it? How are we going to do it safely?
And
how are we
not
going to
let
make sure
that-
we understand?
Not let the why be lazy.
Correct.
That's not a good enough reason.
Right.
You know, ease is not the answer. So the biggest deal is there are a lot of applications. I mean, heck, in our everyday environment, there's a lot of times and places that having a gun is severely frowned upon.
Right.
You know, so if we had it in a good quality holster, but yet it could be exposed or seen, that's a no-go. So
Right.
you have to be able to be 100% sure that you can truly conceal it.
Yep.
So completely agree. I think that's a good place to start and be able to see. If you guys have questions and you guys have things specifically that you want to know, man, ask them. We'll be happy to answer and do as much as we can. We can do follow-ups with specifics, but the biggest deal is consider the questions, answer them for yourselves, and then once you answer those questions, go ahead and go try it. The biggest thing that we'll say is if your holster is something that you're buying at a retail store, you know, if you're walking into a Walmart or in a sports store or a Bass Pro Shop and you're buying a holster, it's not a quality concealed carry holster, period. Doesn't exist. Have you found one?
No.
So anyway, hope that helps. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you guys later.